if you stopped all fossil fuels emissions tomorrow, 100%, climate change would continue because of biodiversity loss, desertification, and megafires that have nothing at all to do with fossil fuels.
Today we continue with part 2 of my conversation with Allan Savory. He's a firm believer that livestock must be a part of reversing what he feels is a threat to mankind, that being desertification. Today our conversation leads us down the road of talking about climate change, and while it's a topic that finds many ranchers not on the same page or in agreement with environmental groups, what's Allan Savory's take on it and fossil fuels? Plus, we'll start down the road also in the conversation of understanding what truly is the meaning of holistic management. That's today in part 2 of my conversation with Allan Savory on this episode of the Working Ranch Radio Show. Everyone, and welcome. This is the Working Ranch Radio Show. I'm Justin Mills. Thank you for tuning in and joining us here on our program. Yeah, as you heard there in the opening, we're continuing on as I share with you more of my conversation with Allan Savory. We'll get to that in just a few moments. But before we do that, I did want to remind you that coming up later in the show, the Captain Tim O'Byrne will be in for this week's edition of Tim's Two Cents, and we'll hear from meteorologist Don Day with a look at our long-term weather. Of course, last week he talked about this significant cold front that was going to be moving in to North America. What's that look like? How's it going to affect you? Be sure to tune in later on in the show as we have that conversation with meteorologist Don Day. Now, also, I did want to mention, too, that coming up this month, in fact, it's going to be February 9th through the 13th in Spokane, Washington, is the 78th annual meeting of the Society for Range Management. Now, part of that is in conjunction with that will be the 2025 Producers Forum. And one of the guests with that is also Allan Savory. He will be joining them remotely to answer questions from folks that are listening, but also on hand and part of that Producers Forum as the main conversation of topics going to be on regenerative grazing and soil health will be Alejandro Carrillo as well as John Lundgren. Now, I know that things are getting a little tight as far as time, and if you're not able to make it all the way to Spokane, Washington, you can still join the Society for Range Management's annual meeting remotely as well. If you want to find out more about everything that's going on there for their annual meeting, you can go to their website at rangelands.org. Well, we're going to continue on in sharing with you our conversation here today with Allan Savory. And if you joined us last week, you kind of got the idea or the feel of just initially where things started for him and his concern about the increase in desertification across the world and his firm belief that cattle ranchers must be part of the solution to reversing the desertification that's causing other things. Today, we continue on in that conversation as we address first the topic on climate change.
When you're talking about climate change, trying to take us back there, climate change is biodiversity loss, desertification, fueling fires at altitudes and latitudes we've never known before, leading to climate change along with fossil fuels. The whole world is concentrating virtually on get rid of livestock and focus on fossil fuels and their emissions. Now, if you stopped all fossil fuels emissions tomorrow, 100%, climate change would continue because of biodiversity loss, desertification, and megafires that have nothing at all to do with fossil fuels. This is common sense 101. This is science.
Mm-hmm.
So if you also stopped all fossil fuels and you stopped all people eating meat and got made artificial plastic meat from fossil fuels, which they will be doing, right? So what? You remove the only thing that humans can use to stop desertification. And I stress the only thing. It cannot be done as when I was training the 2,000 people over 2 years in government agencies, the human belief is that we have thousands of ways of doing it. So I said to them, look, whatever university you trained in, whatever degree you did, I don't care. Just list every tool you were ever taught to or used to manage our environment at large. They listed thousands of things. 2,000 men and women listed thousands of things. I said, now break them into categories. And they did, and it became two tools, fire and technology.
Okay.
With fire and technology, it is simply not possible to stop desertification.
Okay, so let's talk about that, because I know in your conversation or in your TED Talk, you brought up the use of fire. That definitely, if we're going to talk about how stuff was managed years ago, fire was a part of our environment many, many years ago. Like, for example, in North America, before there was even a civilized population, fire was a part of that. And so you mentioned that fire's not necessarily the answer to this. Why isn't it?
Well, you said fire was part of the environment. In nature, yes, fire is natural. Volcanic fires, periodic fires, very, very rare, natural. Right now, at a period, somewhere in the last million years, humans learned to use fire as a tool. And then later they learned to light it. Now, prior to using fire as a tool, humans only had technology, which was Stone Age stuff, and you could not change your environment any more than an otter or a vulture or any other tool-using animal. The moment we acquired fire, we could melt the stones and go to the bronze, the copper, the Iron Age, and every bit of technology you're using today and the clothes you're in, as I talk to you, everything was made possible by fire. So now we've had technology for roughly 1 million years, and now we had fire, a second tool, and our technology became everything that we've got today, including ability for space travel. But it's still a tool of technology. The only other tool, as I mentioned in the TED Talk, about 10,000 years ago, people developed the idea of positively using rest, or what's been called rewilding today, to let the environment recover. But that and fire both lead to desertification, rest and fire, because it was the large mammals by the millions, something like 80% of the genera were killed off once humans with language, organization, spear, and fire learned that they were not a predator, they were an omnivore that could become a predator, and that they could kill whole herds more easily than they could isolate and kill one animal, which is what predators have done for millions of years. So yes, we had a changed world, and now people say that fire was natural. No, it's not. And people praise the Aborigines and the North American Indians for how skilled they were at manipulating the environment with fire. Yes, of course they were skilled because they had no other tool. Their technology was still very, very simple, and they were using fire, so they became skilled at it. But you can trace the beginnings of desertification and biodiversity loss to their time. The whole of Australia changed from a fire-fearing, fire-phobic vegetation to a fire-dependent vegetation under Aborigine management with fire. That is desertification and climate change.
Mm-hmm. Allan, I want to go back real quick and just have you maybe clarify with me something that you just said. You said rest and fire have been elements that have led to desertification. And while we're going to have an opportunity, and I do want to do this to get into the specifics of your holistic management and what that entails and what that looks like. I know we'll get to that. But I just want to, and I know we're kind of dipping into that conversation just a little bit with this question, but it is this. As you said, rest and fire lead to desertification. From my understanding, rest is a really critical part of proper land management. So I guess, can you kind of explain my confusion there, I guess, or lead me to more clarification in that?
Yeah, it's not easy. That's why it took us 10,000 years to solve this. I'm writing a memoir on the incredible struggles to solve this problem. Now, rest, all right, that's why in the TED Talk, I showed experimental plots that were put in all over the United States. The American government apparently wanted to kill 50,000 Navajo sheep because they were causing the desertification of the Southwest. Now, they needed proof, scientific proof, before going ahead. So research plots were put in Southern California, New Mexico, Arizona, blah, blah, blah. I inspected every plot we could find with members of the 2,000 government agency people that were being trained by me over 2 years. And every single plot we found, all right, proved the point. When they stopped overgrazing plants by taking the livestock off, the plants grew. Of course they grew. Now, they took that as evidence and they went ahead and shot the Navajo sheep. But the desertification of the Navajo land continued. So I said, well, let's look at the research plots, because I didn't dismantle them. They're still there. And every single plot was turning to desert, being rested. Why? Because the grass plants that had grown were not being grazed. And therefore, grasses can't graze themselves like trees, felling their own leaves, cutting off their own leaves. The leaves and the stems stand in sunlight, and like the outside of a thatch roof, they turn dark gray and black and die. Look at the inside of a flat thatch roof even 50 years later, and it's still yellow. Mm-hmm. So the grass started to kill itself by oxidizing, chemically breaking down, and not biologically breaking down. So for thousands of years, humans observed that. And their answer was, what? Use fire to remove it and you keep the grass alive. Yes, you do, but fire is rapid oxidation, it's chemical breakdown. We didn't understand that. We began to understand that 50 years ago, but it's still not being taught in academia.
We're going to pause here and take a break. Coming up next, we're going to be talking on another subject that I know for us in the agricultural industry, just not quite sure how to go there. And that is when we start talking climate change, what we've seen in the world is a war on fossil fuels. Well, what's Allan's take on fossil fuels? We're going to talk about that dicey topic when we come back here on the Working Ranch Radio Show. This segment today, though, brought to you by Ambrook. I don't know if you caught last week's show, but Mackenzie Burnett, who's the CEO and founder of Ambrook, joined us last week, had a great conversation with her talking about really where the vision was for Ambrook and why they saw the need in the agricultural industry to develop an accounting software. Of course, it has a mobile interface, mobile base that allows you to do a lot of things right through that without having to jump back and forth through different types of new technology interfaces. Maybe it's paying bills or tracking receipts, things like that. But, one of the things, too, that I feel is extremely important, and one of the things that they are able to do in their Ambrook software is the ability to track your profit and loss, a P&L statement, by enterprise. We all need to know the gross margins of our enterprises, and for a lot of accounting softwares, now you might be a whiz in that software and can do a P&L per enterprise, but it's going to be a little bit difficult. However, in Ambrook, they had that ability to break that out by enterprise, by location even. So a lot of things there that it makes it very useful. If you want to find out more about Ambrook, you can go to their website at ambrook.com/ranch. If you do that today, you'll get a 30-day free trial courtesy of all of us here at Workin' Ranch. And I might also mention, when it comes to support and learning and training on this, they're based right here in the United States. They have one-on-one video training, group video training, email support, chat support. So to find out more, again, you can go to their website at ambrook.com/ranch. You can try out Ambrook and get a 30-day free trial courtesy of all of us here at Workin' Ranch.
With rising feed costs and an increased focus on sustainability within the beef industry, feed efficiency is more than a buzzword. It's rapidly becoming a battle cry in an industry challenged to do more with less. By incorporating today's Limousine and Limflex genetics into your planned crossbreeding program, you can capitalize on the breed's inherent feed efficiency advantage and moderate cow size, while still banking the premiums paid for high-quality, high-yielding carcasses. That's 2 ways to profit instead of 1. Let Limousine and Limflex deliver dollars to your bottom line. Limousine today, profit tomorrow.
Okay, let's jump into something that you've been touching on a little bit, and I want to get to this because I'm trying to, as we go through our conversation, Allan, bring up points that I think those listening to our show here today, while in overall probably going to be in agreement with the concept of us as ranchers need to be a part of the solution. We have to be part of that solution. Okay, we're probably going to be in agreement there with everybody that listens for the most part. But there are some little bits and pieces here that are going to, people might like, I'm not sure if I'm going to go with that. So let's address fossil fuels, okay? It's something that we've come to rely on in our culture, in our society that we have today. The just complete moving away from that. And as you said, even if we got rid of fossil fuels, we would still have issues. So we're not going to blame everything on fossil fuels. But, I mean, your thoughts in the realistic element of actually moving away from fossil fuels?
We need to move away from the rapid burning of fossil fuels. Humans are going to need what we call fossil fuels, large carbon molecules, for centuries if we tackle climate change and do survive, because you can make so many things from them that humans need. What is the problem is the rapid burning, rapid destruction, and the pollution it's putting into the air. But so is fire, and so on. So focusing on that is not going to solve it.
Sure.
I'm not going to give you the problem today, the solution today, because I don't have it. Mm-hmm. What I have is a way to start working together. Stop blaming, going into fights over this. We have to start working together and address the root cause. And that I talked about in a 12-minute talk at COP26 on climate change. And I said, look, I've been invited as one of 3 people around the world to speak about regenerative agriculture. And I said, I'm not going to do so, because there's so many people who know far more about agriculture than I do. What I want to do is talk about the cause of the problem. And I said, we'll be blaming climate change, etc., this stuff. And I said, at this conference, you will have many people, like many of your listeners, our listeners today, who believe in food being produced by farmers and ranchers based on the biological sciences, and they believe in that, and so do I. And I said, they're a very small proportion, and then you'll have a very big proportion of people who are promoting corporate production of food based on chemistry and technology. And that's a far greater group of people. And we get into arguments and fights, and we will do that for the next 50 years while the ship is sinking. Mm-hmm. And I said, what we need to be doing is talking about the cause of the problem. And the cause isn't how we produce food, fiber from the world's land, waters, etc. It's the way we do it at scale through developing policies. And that took me 12 minutes to make that. And I've had a lot of comments on that around the world, social media. It's the only thing I've ever given. I haven't ever got a single word of criticism. Mm-hmm. In over 2 years now, but nobody has been willing to take action.
Okay, I want you to go a little deeper on that. The way we're doing it at scale, the cause is the way we're doing it at scale through policy. Just work that out with me, because I get it, but I need to hear you explain that a little bit.
Okay. Everything we do, basically, is dependent on agriculture. Without agriculture, you can't have a church, can't have an army, can't have a choir, can't have a discussion, can't have a government, can't have any business in the world until agriculture is stable and productive and not destroying our environment. We're in grave danger. Now, when you look at that, as I pointed out in the COP26 very short talk, I said the cause of this problem is that humans are not managing millions of things as we believe. All we are managing in everything we do is we are managing our families, our communities, and beyond that, to go to scale, we're managing institutions or organizations. Most people listening to us can't even make a toothbrush today. Mm-hmm. A corporation makes it. Okay, so that's the situation we're in. Now, the first thing, whether you're a family on a ranch, or whether you're an environmental organization, a university, or a political party, or a company, the very first thing you have to do is to manage their finances. If the family goes broke, the farmer commits suicide. If the environmental organization goes broke, it fails. If the government agency See, if the political party goes broke, it fails. It doesn't matter which you look at. So you're managing humans and our organizations, that the first priority is to manage their finances. And only now, after that, are they managing nature to produce every single thing that we do, whether it's a toothbrush, a computer, a song, everything we're doing is coming, all of our food is coming from managing nature. So it doesn't matter whether you're looking at the farm, looking at the farm family, looking at the government agency, that is the order. And worldwide, everything we're doing, music, art, literature, buildings, roads, everything, we are producing it. We're not managing it. We're producing it through humans, organizations, economy, and nature. And if you zero down to the simplicity of that, which I cannot get any scientist to challenge, if you do that, it becomes relatively easy for us humans to stop the blaming and start working together.
Mm-hmm. That phrase that you just said there, stop blaming and work together. I've heard you say that 3 times in our conversation, 4 times or more in our conversation. So I think that is a crux that really is going to be the point that we have to, as you had said, let go of the egos and begin to work together on this and find that solution. Okay, really quick before we jump into some other things. There's a big push in our ranching industry now to see carbon capture programs and various things like that. Now, I realize this is kind of a real side conversation that we're going to have in the overall context of our conversation as a whole. But I just wanted to get your thoughts a little bit on that, because it is a conversation that comes up, and I have my own theory. I mean, I think if we do what we need to be doing from a management standpoint, that's going to happen. But do you feel we're seeing these programs of carbon capture? Are we getting the cart in front of the horse, or we have the horse in the right order with the cart? Just your thoughts in general of this push that we're seeing in our industry now of carbon capture programs.
I don't want to get into the blaming or any of that stuff, so this is just an academic point I'm making. You'll notice me never opposing it in public or anything, because people are doing their best, and I don't want to be part of that blaming. But if you look at it realistically, carbon capture means we're trying to take excess carbon that is being blamed for climate change and everything that's happening today out of the atmosphere and putting it back in the soil or oceans. That's where we've got to put it, right? So we haven't got the cart before the horse. We've got the bull by the udder.
Okay.
Because as fast as we're doing that on one hand, every single government in its policy, its foreign aid, etc., including all the stuff the new administration in America is talking about, is promoting biodiversity loss and desertification. And so those plus fire, billions of acres burning in Africa every single year. We pay great attention to the California fires. We pay no attention to over 1 billion hectares, I think it is, burning every year in Africa on the advice often of environmentalists, governments, and universities. So we look at this, and desertification will continue putting carbon in the air. Fires will continue putting desertification in the air. They will increase, I guarantee it, under present policies, while we pay people to do the wrong thing, to pull carbon out of the air and try and put it back in the soil. We've got the bull by the udder. Now, nobody's to blame. Nobody understood how this was being a hidden result of how we develop policies.
I'm pausing here because I don't know where to go with that. I see what you're saying. And so we've got a new administration in the White House in the United States now. Do they get it?
No, they don't get it any more than anybody else's, but they're not to blame for that. I mean, nobody got this until we discovered this and started to understand it in the 1980s. And as I said, tragically, the then Reagan administration, but probably would have happened with any other, banned all future training. And we had to try and continue. They urged me to give up my international consulting practice and form a non-profit organization. which exists today as the Savory Institute.
Mm-hmm.
And I gave up because I wasn't an American. I was an exile here being commissioned to provide that training.
Mm-hmm.
So nobody's really to blame for this. None of us knew. Don Sylvester didn't know, Ray Margo, none of us, the forestry people. We had every government agency representative of our committee working with me. None of us understood why, when the whole agreement was that if this training, there was a big demand for it, the American government would take over my work and continue it. That was our agreement. And we had this big demand. As I said, Forest Service alone starting to request 18,000 people to be trained. And instead of the agreement being followed, all training was banned. So we didn't understand that because we didn't understand system science and wicked problems.
Mm-hmm.
That when you form a human organization, it is no longer human. The moment you form it, it takes on a life of its own. The first organization will be treated as a human when we hang it for killing people. We have never done so. And so it doesn't matter what you look at. Once you form an organization, it's an entity of its own. It's managed by humans, but it's become an entity on its own. And it's got to finance itself, etc.
We're going to pause here and take a break. And when we pick up in our conversation with Allan Savory, the next topic is really going to be talking about his view from a very broad perspective of what holistic management is. And through our conversation, we'll continue to dive a little bit deeper into what that really means.
Support your cattle's health and productivity with Vigortone minerals. Since 1912, Vigortone has been a trusted name in animal nutrition. Our revitalized product line offers targeted nutrition for every stage of production and every region. Vigortone delivers consistent performance and simplifies your mineral decisions. Wherever you are, Vigortone works. Visit Vigortone.com to learn more.
Let's start moving into our conversation now about holistic management, because that is something that you have brought to the table. And I would say, as you were just explaining now, where you've had institutions that have opposed your, what you want to see happening here. You've seen institutions oppose you, but you've seen individuals accept that and move forward with that. And I would agree. I kind of had a question formed about that elements, as you said, since the 1980s when some of that stuff was stopped, and then there's been some continuation. It's been slow, but we're definitely seeing more and more of it today than we were even 15 years ago. So let's talk about holistic management, and just in general, let's first start broad if we can, and let's start to work down from there.
Okay. So to talk about what holistic management means, we have to look at management. Now, in you and me and every listener, correct me if I'm wrong, in managing your life and your environment, which is the only way you can do it, you have done since many years ago, haven't you made every decision to meet a need you had, a desire you had, or to address a problem you had? Have you ever made a conscious decision other than for those three reasons? I think you'll find it difficult.
Mm-hmm.
I never have. No humans have. It's exactly the same with the government. It's exactly the same with every organization. There is the problem right there, because you cannot have the reason for all management action be desire, need, problem, all right, and it be the same as the context for the decision. And what the government, 2,000 people, and the university, 2,000 individuals, not their institutions. The institutions had sent individuals who were working with me. What we had discovered in this was that when we do this, inevitably, and I read out that quote earlier, every single thing we do ends up at some point having unintended consequences. Economists call it the law of unintended consequences. Now, that's what we discovered. Now, if we will never change, and I believe that, I will the rest of my life be making decisions to meet my needs, desires, or solve problems. So will every government. But if that's causing the problem, what the hell context do I make it in? Mm-hmm. And we developed a holistic context, a new concept, not in any branch of religion. No religion has it. Not in any philosophy in the world, never been mentioned, not in any branch of science. And we developed that concept. And what we do now is just get people, institutions can't do it. Just get the people in the organization to develop a holistic context, basically being how, based on their culture, they want their lives to be and what their life-supporting environment, producing all their food and everything, will have to be like hundreds of years from now to still be doing that, and what their behavior will have to be to not be in conflict, to be working in harmony with fellow humans. Once we've got that, with deep ownership in it, now we have a context to meet our needs, desires, or solve problems. That's, in essence, what holistic management is.
Well, that's a lot deeper than the general concept that I think people think it is. I really do. I think what you just said there is, I don't really think that people that are saying that they're in holistic management, in a way, not everybody, but some people that say, well, we're a holistic management ranch. We sell products, they got all these cliches that they're going to, in their marketing, and one of them being holistic. I don't think they understand what you just said.
I believe you're correct. Now, I never blame them because they're doing the best they can. And millions of people are starting to use the word and so on. And this is how advance happens. But it's going to be too slow at the rate at which climate is being changed by desertification, fires, and fossil fuels. It's going to be too slow. Now, this is where we need, as I suggested in the COP26 talk, to get ranchers who can lead to start leading. Mm-hmm. I don't want to repeat what we said. And we need to get institutions, at least one sovereign government, a state in America, a country, to just carry on governing as normal and develop policy on the side, holistically, in a national holistic context, in the interests of the citizens, and let us see what happens. No risk at all. And the upside, if everybody can see what happens and the harmony that with people can work together, and once they do this, then you'll never be able to put a price on that. We will save billions of lives, cities, everything. So that's what I'm suggesting, a very simple, never before tried way to just, let's do a little exercise and see what we can do. Nothing shifts an institution until the ordinary people opinion shifts. Mm-hmm. And that takes anywhere from 100 to 200 years. I've been at this over 60 years, and we've shifted 1 millimeter. Mm-hmm. I will soon be gone. Good luck to the rest. In my remaining time, I would love to put what's left of my life into just working with one statesman-like leader in any state, government, sovereign entity, and just do this on the side and see what can be happening.
Mm-hmm. I had this question for later on, in more of a conclusion type question for you, but I want to bring it up because you mentioned something earlier that desertification is happening faster than some of the things that we can be doing. Are you okay with change not happening as fast as you want it to?
Yes, I'm completely happy with change, like desertification taking time, because it's taken thousands of years to create the Sahara. You're not going to turn it around in 1,000 years. But what I'm in haste for is to address the cause of the problem. Because it doesn't matter what the change, it doesn't matter what the new administration in America does. It doesn't matter what any government does. If they don't address the cause of the problem, common sense tells every listener, every mother knows this, telling her children, if you don't address the cause of a problem, you'll never, ever solve it.
Yeah.
That is my simple message.
We're going to take a break here, and when we come back, we're going to talk with Allan about the dilemma that a lot of times we find ourselves as ranchers in. Well, yeah, we want to be doing things for our grandchildren. However, sometimes it's about just getting by from day to day, and we're having to make short-term decisions. We're going to talk about that dilemma when we come back. This segment today brought to you by Calf Catcher. Now here's the captain, Tim O'Byrne, with more.
Hey everybody, Tim here. We're fixing to come up on 1 million downloads of our Working Ranch radio show podcast, which is really exciting. And it got me to thinking about another viral moment that we had back in 2017 when we ran a short Facebook video of the Safety Zone calf catchers. And it was so popular, it got 6.8 million views in the first 5 days. I want you folks to check it out, Safety Zone calf catchers. It's a great product for all producers. Keep you safe when you're working with baby calves, especially for old timers like me who maybe can't outrun those cows anymore. Check them out, Safety Zone Calf Catchers.
Calving season is a favorite time of year, but along with that special time are dangers, extra stress, and increased labor. Safety Zone Calf Catchers are all about safety and making processing new calves easier. Designed for ATVs or UTVs, one person can do the job and never be threatened by the protective mother cow. Make this and every calving season safer and easier with a Safety Zone Calf Catcher. Watch videos and customer testimonials or order yours today at safetyzonecalfcatchers.com or call 877-505-0914. Affordable and made in the USA. Make your upcoming and all future calving seasons safer, easier, and stress-free. Durable and designed to work anywhere you can drive your ATV or UTV. Order online at safetyzonecalfcatchers.com or call 877-505-0914 today.
Capitalize on crossbreeding with Geld V and Balancer bulls. Raise replacement females with added fertility, increased longevity, and greater productivity. Geld V and Balancer influenced females wean more pounds of calf per cow exposed. In the feed yard, Balancer influenced cattle offer increased performance, improved feed efficiency, and had excellent carcass merit. Balancers add the pounds, make the grade, and deliver the value. Make your crossbreeding count with Geld V and Balancer genetics.
I want to go back to a comment you said just a little bit ago about measuring some of this decisions by what do you want your grandchildren or the future of this, maybe it's your ranch or our society, our world as a whole to look like, and basing decisions off of that. I think as ranchers, sometimes that's tough. It's not that we don't want to or that there's not a desire to want to look out for those future generations. But the profitability in our industry, for some, is little to none. So it drives here and now solutions rather than future solutions. Your thoughts?
You're absolutely right. Okay, so let me try and take that with you. I think how to put this simply. All the ranchers I've ever known, they're wonderful people, and they totally are trying to keep it alive. Those are loving people. They love their families. They don't know they're accidentally damaging. They don't know this, right? And that's what we need to look at. So when we look at what's happening, you talk about the profitability. That's exactly what I said earlier. First thing a ranch has to do is to be profitable, otherwise they can't support their family. Now, the number one cause of lack of profitability on privately owned ranches in the world is overcapitalization. We established that in the 1960s. Now, the only way you can overcome overcapitalization is by increasing the production per unit of land, because the bulk of the money is tied up in the value of land, buildings, blah, blah, blah. Right now, to do that, if you look at ranchers, when they meet in the coffee shop, what do they brag about? They brag about their breed. Yeah. They brag about their weaner weights, their conception rates. I've gone through it for years. All right, they never brag about the yield per hectare. Now, if you meet a bunch of wheat farmers, cane farmers, any other farmers, crop farmers, they don't brag about their breed, the strain. They brag about the yield per hectare, the bushels per hectare, the pounds per acre. They understand this. For some reason, ranchers, encouraged by the whole range industry, etc., don't understand this. So when I started training people in America, an interesting study was done by Bev Steiner and co-workers at Ohio State University. And that is published and cited in my textbook. What she did was to follow up early practitioners, ranchers who came to me for training across the United States from California to Florida. And they found that on average, these ranchers that came to me averaged 300% more profit. Now, that was at a time in America where over 600,000 farming families went bankrupt, and suicide was the leading cause of death. How come a sample of ranchers averaged 300% more profits in the same markets? Now, I thought that would catch on with the cattlemen's organizations. Never a mention, never cited. It's very hard to understand institutional mentality. A few ranchers kept with it, and most started to follow grazing gurus and horse whisperers. There were none of those in America when I started training about 10,000 people. Within 6 months, we had, I think it was over 13 different grazing systems being promoted by ranchers with egos, grazing gurus, etc. And that's normal. A whole textbook's written by Everett Rogers, The Fusion of Innovations. Everett was in a think tank with me in Santa Fe. We talked about this. It's just absolutely normal behavior because of our egos. That's why I said earlier, we have to let go of egos.
We're going to pause and pick up next week where we left off here today as I continue to share with you the remaining parts of my conversation with Allan Savory. Just a great conversation that I think has been extremely thought-provoking. Next week when we pick up, you're going to see the naivety of my understanding about holistic management in one of the first questions that I asked him. And I believe some of that naivety is really in a lot of us in the industry, and I believe the term holistic management is being used as a marketing tool when people really, truly claiming they are doing that don't really understand that. That's part of our conversation next week as we wrap up that conversation with Allan Savory. So be sure to tune in on the Working Ranch Radio Show. Coming up next, the Captain Tim O'Byrne is in with this week's edition of Tim's 2 Cents, and we'll hear from meteorologist Don Day.
Fascinated by our wild weather? Now you can learn, appreciate, and understand the weather in your own backyard with the new Tropo Rain Gauge. Having achieved the highest rating of any product reviewed by the weatherstationexperts.com, the Tropo boasts rugged durability, impeccable accuracy, and precision to the 100th of an inch. Visit measurerain.com to order a Tropo today and use code RAINDAY. That's RAINDAY for free shipping and 10% off. Go to measurerain.com.
Hey, Justin. Hey, everybody out there in Working Ranch Radio Land, talking to you from the trade show floor, Cattle Con 25 in San Antonio, Texas. I got to tell you what, it's humid down here. Boy, this is some kind of trade show. I got to tell you what, the people from Hawaii to British Columbia to Florida to Mexico to overseas, we've met so many great folks that are involved in our amazing cattle industry. I am so uplifted by all the stories of, progression and innovation. And I'm kind of concerned by some of the stories of that we're hearing of things that are not going the way they ought to. And I'm encouraged that we are working together to make those things go the way we need them to go. I just can't thank people enough for stopping by our booth. It's been just swamped here. And we're doing so much great interaction with these people. I've never been, more impressed with the young folks that are coming here. We see them every year, but this is kind of different. The way things are going, there's a lot of technology at the show that's it's going to blow your mind. I'm going to have to go back and sit down for about 6 months and kind of get my mind wrapped around it all. But all in all, I'm extremely positive about this industry. I'm so proud and humbled to be a part of it, and we couldn't do anything without you folks. So thank you so much for supporting Working Ranch Magazine, the Working Ranch Radio Show. Hear lots of great comments. Justin, you've heard it here from folks on the floor that just say, we just love the podcast. Had a guy stop in at the booth here, a young guy, and he had gone away for 5 years into the oil patch. He comes back and he says, you know what, I listened to every episode of the podcast to catch up on what I missed and get me up to speed on where I need to be. Thank you so much, Justin, for that. So kudos to the Working Ranch team, and just have a great week, folks, and we'll catch up to you later. Back to you in the studio.
All right, thanks, Captain. Appreciate that. And yeah, it was good to see everybody at this year's cattle convention in San Antonio, Texas. As I said before on one of the shows, San Antonio is not a city I had ever been to. I've been to a lot of other places in Texas, but San Antonio wasn't one. I was really looking forward to it, enjoyed it. We were able to take in the river walk there one of those nights. And then, of course, my hotel was right next to the old Alamo that we all hear about in San Antonio. It was good to see that and kind of get some pictures of a very historic event. In fact, a lot of places in San Antonio are very historic, and it was just good to see that town. Good to see everybody that stopped by the booth at Cattle Convention. A quick shout out to Rick and Janet Hartman of J&E Cattle Company out of Florida. They stopped by and said they've been longtime listeners of the program. And also a quick shout out to Mark LaValle of LaValle Ranch. They're at a homestead with Homestead Meats. They're out of Colorado, and it was interesting to visit with him and some of the other producers that have been a part of a meat packing plant that they've had out of Grand Junction, Colorado since the early 1990s. I told him, I said, boy, you were ahead of the game in that, but good just to visit with a few folks and see what's going on in the industry. Like the captain said, a lot of new innovative things here in the industry, and we hope to share some of that with you throughout this next year as well. Some of the technology that's in the industry that could be potential things that we would see could be used on a ranch operation. So I look forward to sharing with you some of those stories throughout the remaining parts of this year. Well, as we turn now and take a look at our long-term weather, standing by is meteorologist Don Day. And Don, I know last week we talked a little bit about the fact that there was going to be a cold snap moving into the country, and it sure looks like that's actually going to happen now.
Yeah, especially the northern border tier of the United States. And this is going to be an extensive and long-lasting cold wave, and it's going to go into places that don't necessarily get really big cold snaps in the winter, or at least ones that last long. But from central and northern California through Washington, Oregon, and Idaho, then extending into British Columbia, Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, then across Montana, most of Wyoming, both Dakotas, a good part of Nebraska, Minnesota, Wisconsin, the Great Lakes to New England. There's going to be a west to east area of very cold air that's going to settle in. And there could be many days in a row of some really, really cold temperatures with not much of an opportunity to warm up. And those locations I just mentioned are going to be the biggest impacts. There will occasionally be surges of cold air that will escape south, that will go all the way down into the southern plains, into Oklahoma and Texas. But it's the northern tier that's going to be locked into the cold. The bullseye of this is going to be for Montana, North Dakota, parts of South Dakota, and northern Wyoming. That's where I think the most prolonged cold will be. And there'll be some snow with it as well. So folks in those areas need to be ready for just persistent cold. It's not going to really have any opportunities for any significant warm up. Maybe a day or two where temperatures will moderate, but the cold will come right back in.
Now, you talked about it being kind of a northern tier thing, but how far south are you thinking this is going to get and we're going to see these cold temperatures?
Well, I think you're going to see temperatures going below average for a 10-day period all the way into Southern California, all the way into the Oklahoma, Texas panhandles. Then a lot of the Midwest, the Northwest Corn Belt will be affected by this as well, but it won't be persistent cold. Those areas will see some warm-ups, but it's going to cover a large part of the nation again. I don't see this severe cold getting as deep into the South U.S. That cold was more north-south. This cold is spread more west-east across the country.
Mm-hmm. So after this, you had mentioned that this is going to be a bit more prolonged of a cold snap, but after this, into the end of February and into March, what are you seeing for that as we look at the end of winter and first parts of spring?
Well, I think what we're going to start to see, and there's some pretty good indications that this will happen, is all of this Arctic air will kind of break up into little pieces at the end of the month into early March, and then that will get caught. Those pieces will get caught up in the jet stream across the northern hemisphere, and that's going to create a stormy pattern. So when we get to the end of February into early March, we should expect the opportunity for weather makers, meaning snow and rain events across the United States. So it's one of those situations where as the weather normally gets more busy with more storms in the flow, late February into early March, that certainly looks to be on the table. And I do think this does offer opportunities for some parts of the dry areas of the Southwest United States, Arizona, New Mexico, southern Colorado, southern Utah, parts of New Mexico, you probably are going to start seeing some better chances of precipitation as well.
All right, Don. Well, sure appreciate the weather update here today and looking forward to visiting with you next week.
Stay warm.
And again, that is meteorologist Don Day as we take a look at our long-term weather. You can find his daily video podcast if you want to stay in the know of what's going on with weather across the country in this cold snap that we're going to be seeing here coming up. You can go to his website at dayweather.com, and from there you can find a link to his YouTube channel. By the way, while you're there at his YouTube channel, you can subscribe right there, and then you can go right to your YouTube each and every morning and follow along with Don Day on his everyday morning weather podcast. We'll be back on the Working Ranch Radio Show after this.
Calving season is a favorite time of year, but along with that special time are dangers, extra stress, and increased labor. Safety Zone calf catchers are all about safety and making processing new calves easier. Designed for ATVs or UTVs, one person can do the job and never be threatened by the protective mother cow. Make this and every calving season safer and easier with a Safety Zone calf catcher. Watch videos and customer testimonials or order yours today at safetyzonecalfcatchers.com or call 877-505-0914. Affordable and made in the USA. Make your upcoming and all future calving seasons safer, easier, and stress-free. Durable and designed to work anywhere you can drive your ATV or UTV. Order online at safetyzonecalfcatchers.com or call 877-505-0914 today.
Support your cattle's health and productivity with Vigortone minerals. Since 1912, Vigortone has been a trusted name in animal nutrition. Our revitalized product line offers targeted nutrition for every stage of production and every region. Vigortone delivers consistent performance and simplifies your mineral decisions. Wherever you are, Vigortone works. Visit Vigortone.com to learn more.
With rising feed costs and an increased focus on sustainability within the beef industry, feed efficiency is more than a buzzword. It's rapidly becoming a battle cry in an industry challenged to do more with less. By incorporating today's Limousine and Limflex genetics into your planned crossbreeding program, you can capitalize on the breed's inherent feed efficiency advantage and moderate cow size, while still banking the premiums paid for high-quality, high-yielding carcasses. That's two ways to profit instead of one. Let Limousine and Limflex deliver dollars to your bottom line. Limousine today, profit tomorrow.
Before we head out here today, again, just another reminder about the Society for Range Management's annual meeting that's coming up in Spokane, Washington. The date's on that February 9th through the 13th, and the Producers Forum is going to be on the 10th of that. If you want to find the full agenda of everything that's going on, you can go to their website at rangelands.org. The Producers Forum is going to be part of that event as well. That's going to be on the 10th. And if you think you're not going to be able to make it, but you'd like to be able to listen in on what's going on, if you go to the website at rangelands.org, they have a way that you can also join via remote access as well. So check that out for this year's Society for Range Management's annual meeting. Now, don't forget, next week coming up, we're going to wrap up our conversation with Allan Savory. I'm looking forward to sharing with you more on that as we get a little bit more in depth. And I truly believe that there are people that are using the concept of holistic management for marketing techniques and really do not understand what it means. And we talk about that with Allan, so I'm looking forward to sharing the rest of my conversation with you with Allan Savory. The Working Ranch Radio Show is a production of Working Ranch Magazine. Hey, the next issue is about to come to your mailbox. If you don't have a subscription, it's easy to get started by going to workingranchmag.com. If you'd like to get a hold of me, my email address is justin.workingranch@gmail.com. If you're listening via podcast, be sure to leave us a rating or a review. We sure appreciate that. I'm Justin Mills, and until next time, keep your head down and your mind in the middle. So long.